Welcome to What the Freak, back for another episode. Very excited today to have a newer friend who I met once before, actually at a Tantra workshop a couple months back, and is back in town briefly. And it just happened to work out that I could stop in and drop in for a little pizza and podcast today. We just came from eating some pizza, and now we're doing the podcast. So welcome, Akana.
Hi there. Good to be here.
How you feeling?
I feel good. I'm getting comfortable. It's nice to be back in the studio.
Yeah. Well, love for you to just take a minute to introduce yourself, just whatever you feel is most relevant in this moment today that you want to share about, who you are, what you do, why you're here, that kind of thing.
Sure. And yeah, thanks for the invitation. It's such a cool surprise.
Yeah.
And the pizza was phenomenal. My name is Akana Mandate. It's a name that was kind of shown to me. Birth name is Richard Handy, and I used to make fun of people who changed their names to all kinds of things, and that would roll my eyes constantly. And then that happened, and I was like, "Oh no, really?" So, I formerly used to run a acting conservatory in the Southwest, a Meisner-focused conservatory. Wanted to bring the kind of training I'd had and received in New York City down to the Southeast, where I was really enjoying, just loving being away from the city for a moment and in this incredible environment. And then also had a clinic. I was a bioenergetics practitioner inspired from an illness I had and saw such extraordinary results in a whole new paradigm of seeing life in the body and medicine, disease, everything. And it just made a lot more sense. And then started combining those two things unexpectedly. So and here I am in today, and most recently things of the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a transmediumship process that seems to have happened, that has been happening to my body. And transmediumship is when it's like Abraham Hicks, something gets inside of you or something just moves your body, kind of like how we're moved by life, but it's like almost another entity that speaks and then moves your physiology. It's one thing to channel and tap into that frequency and then hear it and perhaps let it speak. And then I'm finding this other experience just where it can do things. It can, and it knows and does things that I've never done or trained or seen before. And I know things suddenly. It's accessing a specific channel of information, like an Abraham Hicks-like thing. So this is, and it's different, but it's completely complementary, which I'm finding, which is I'm in awe of, because I'm like, what's happening, but I'm like, this is really cool, but this is what's going on. And having multiple different energies come in at different times with different voices and expressions and personalities and different knowledge and vibrations. It's like Sense 8, only it feels like Sense 5, but one person. So it's kind of bizarre and surreal. But it's amazing. And I think the more I can accept myself and what's happening, the easier it is to see the wonder and the magic of life and where it wants to take me, rather than perceive as a problem or a challenge or a fear. I think more than anything else, like the fear. So, but it's wild. It's amazing. So that's what I've been leaning into today and in terms of my life, and trying to bring it all together and share in a way that feels exciting and inspiring for me. And just still wondering, like, I don't know. I'm still wondering, where is this going? So.
Wow. Yeah, I find this really fascinating, and I may have mentioned this to you when I first met you, but I actually was coached at one point by a man who channeled a being, actually a being from Sirius called Bergiel. Shout out David, what's up, homie? It's been a minute. How you doing, man? And that was really an interesting experience to experience him as his human, and also to experience him when he would go into his channel state. And it was like a totally different energy and being, and like the way that he spoke, like it was like something was inside of him when he did that. And I'm curious a little more about your experience with that. For him, it was more of he had, I think, kind of a specific little short meditation he would do to kind of call it in, and then he would kind of like exit the channel. Now, is that do you consciously call this in or not, or can it just come and go as it pleases? Is there any type of control you have over it? Or can you expect when it's going to happen? Like, I'm just curious to hear a little more about like your experience with that.
It's fascinating because at first it's been a progression, you know, and the first beginning of the experiences was just being moved by something, and initially I had experiences with psychedelics. And then I would have this experience, and suddenly I realized like my hands would start moving. And I'm just like, it was my first experience of what it was to be moved. But then I started saying things, and I thought this was accessing something through this psychedelic co-creation, you know, whatever, this supplement. So that was really interesting. I was just like, well, what is this? And it was really fascinating to be in that space, but it wasn't, I wasn't using that as a portal. It was just an invitation. You know, it's just like, well, play with these, and it's awakening something. It's shifting something. And so I started to see more and more of these experiences, and it just created this wonder and this access to this other world of understanding our world, but also the world. And then also at the same time, like, I don't know what I don't know. I have no idea what I don't know. So it's only as far as I can see, you know, as anybody. And they come in when they want. Like initially it was just I could just hear them all the time. Like initially it was that. And so when I wasn't in a psychedelic state, when I was in a psychedelic state, even just a little bit, suddenly like they would come in. It was like full on. It's just like, hello, you know, like, and we're going to show you something. And so I went to school for hours, you know, and they started, and that's what I was like, you know, even like a microdose, it would just be like school time. It would be my practical. And I was just like, wow, what is this? And then there was all these invitations, and then it just wasn't, then it just started happening whenever it wanted to happen. You know, and I'm just like, what's going on? Wait, what am I talking about? Who's talking? You know, and I would just start watching it for a while. But it came up first. I was doing bodywork in Costa Rica, and I practiced in that for like 14, 15 years. So I was very comfortable in that. And then suddenly there was a moment where after a certain point, I suddenly could look at someone's body and see so much inside of the body. I could see pathways and lights and constructs and discord within the family unit, their partner, their parents, and where the tethers of the emotionals, you know, I was just like, where the emotional discord was in their physiology. And I was just like this, and I was like, what am I seeing? And then they, as soon as they asked a question, I would just start saying the answer. And it kept happening like that. I would just ask a question, and if I didn't allow it to speak through me, I would hear it. And so even like as you're speaking or someone else is speaking, I'm often hearing other voices complementing the information on terms of a multi-vibrational level in terms of a deeper level of truth. You know, because sometimes people will speak around things, or when there's a lot of conflict, they'll start discussing what's underneath that. It's what they call the C story, the love story. It's like we get caught up in this like A story of like what the newspapers are talking about and things like this. And then the B story of like, well, that's false. You know, it's here's the undercover stuff. Here's what's going on. And they're like, yeah, they're all real, but underneath it all, there's this love story. And so that's where the deeper truth is. But they're all true. So it's just there's more energy there. There's more flow because there's more truth there. So they tend to come in at it's like Sense8, if you've seen that.
That's actually one of the very few TV shows I've watched all the way through.
Is it?
It was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. It took me like 3. I was like, I don't know, whatever. And 5 years, I was like, forget it. I'm just not interested. Then I saw it again this year. I was like, all right, I'm going to see what it's about. Everybody's talking about it. I could not stop watching it. I was like, oh my God. So, and I was like, that's what it feels like. You know, suddenly they don't realize that someone else is there. Or somebody takes over their body and they just start doing things. That's what it's like. But it always happens at the time when it's most resonant and serves me the most. Whether I'm scared or if there's something for me to expand into and experience, because it's all about experience. They're like, you're here to experience everything. So those different energies empower me with either that vibration of knowledge or connection or resonance of truth of whatever it is. And then it engages with me and it takes me there. So, and I can watch it happen. I watch them take over, and it takes me sometimes because it's so seamless. I don't need to be like a meditate, like it's like that. And I can flip it like that too. And it's like whenever, as soon as I get in front of a table, it's like, whew, there they are. They're like right there. And what happened when I was doing the body work in Costa Rica was that my hands eventually, as I was saying this, I realized I was looking at the person on the table and I was just talking. And I was like, what am I saying? I'm just like watching myself of like, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm just talking. And so then I realized I don't know what my hands are doing right now. I'm just watching them move in this way that I've never seen before, studied, or even heard of. So I'm like, what am I doing? But I would see their bodies like moving in these most extraordinary ways. Like this energy was just moving. And so, and what I've seen as a consequence in the shifts in the people's physiology, like it blows my mind. And I call it life shift, because it's not about, there's nothing wrong with anything. They're like, there's nothing wrong. There's no problems unless you want to create them, and then deem them problems and then solve them. And then, cool, way to go, that's fun. So let's do that. But they're like, it's not like God is up there looking down saying, man, we nailed it except those humans. We totally screwed that up, you know?
It's perfect creation, but we fucked up the humans.
Oh, drawing board, let's go. So it was such an interesting thing to like, they're like, there's no problems, there's no mistakes. So you just don't see it all yet.
So to pause you on that note, I'm curious, what is your experience, or how do you perceive or put into your context something like the concept of sin?
Sin?
Yeah.
Oh, what an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Never been asked that. Well, it's funny because it's funny. It's interesting to me. Everything's so interesting now. I'm like, what is sin? Such an interesting construct, because when they talked about yoga, I went to this yoga retreat, and as soon as I got there, I just fasted for a month, half of which was water, and I could barely walk. I had a hard time breathing. And here I was going to the yoga training to be a certified teacher. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm showing up, and I'm like, why am I doing this right after this? Like, because I just follow what they tell me. They send me on these amazing adventures, and it's intense. It's really intense as fuck, but it shows me this whole other thing when I trust it. You know, it's a whole nother world, but you don't. It's something you can read about and you can think and see in your imagination because it's real. Because imagination is a connection between the heart and source, so you can connect to that. And this is their perspective. So, but when you tap into sorry, I just blanked. Of the desires of humanity, I think sorry, I totally blanked right there. Oh, because I went to this yoga retreat, and they were saying, as soon as I got there, they said, you're going to fail. And what was happening is when you fast, you basically eat away what they would say the stories inside of you. You're eating away, because they talk about, and I'll get back to the sin thing, there's a big circle around for that. Yeah. So they talk about 3D is where there's pieces of you that are caught in time, because there's a part of your heart, part of your truth, and truth is what they call love, like your truth, that moment. Because no thought is an accident. It's not like, oh no, not that one, not that one. They're like, it's there for a reason. You're seeing it for a reason. It's not a mistake. So when we apply curiosity instead of our perceived story, or both actually, let's say both. So there's nothing wrong with anything. So it's like, okay, that's your truth and. So they say there's pieces of our heart that are trapped in the three-dimensional reality from other lifetimes because we didn't trust our truth. We didn't trust love. We didn't trust our heart. And so that part of our heart didn't get expressed because we thought it wasn't safe. It wasn't more powerful than whatever was in front of us. And so a lot of people, what we end up doing is dying, holding on to these things, like trying to hold on to life, hold on to our heart. And that's like trying to put a chain link fence around a tank. It's like, it's kind of pointless. Or a picket fence. You're like, all right. So, and what they talk about between 3D and 4D is that there are all these lifetimes, and each lifetime you're trying to, it's like those are love stories. They're unexpressed parts of love stories. Often the most epic endings, those are the pieces that get held on to because it's so intense. And that's the part that didn't get an opportunity to be heard and felt and seen in the world. And that is just as equal as anything else. So to deny that is to deny our creation, deny our truth, to deny that part of us, no matter what it looks like. Because what we deem as good or bad or ugly or bad, they're like, no, it's just truth. You can have a perspective on it, but it's just truth. And that's great. Just go with it. Keep going. So those pieces are inside each person's physiology like a map. And those are magnets. And they pull in life to try and pry that out of us through relationships or sex or psychedelics or family or experiences or life or work or whatever it is. And sometimes we go on these amazing journeys to try and open up that part of our heart. And it will pull us in, this epic thing. And then suddenly we can get crushed open so that we could feel that part of what it is to be human and remember that part of us, because we're here to experience all of it. And once that happens, then it becomes 4D. And then time and space is malleable because your heart is completely open, and that's the resonance of the universe. In the meantime, we keep tapping into moments, points of it. And that's why we have a split consciousness, is because these times, other times in the 3D that are being held in the physiology are now as well. So they're both now. It's just when we speak our truth, because it can be really uncomfortable in this lifetime, it's mirroring something. It's like a homeopathic or similar version of the same thing. And it's saying, can you do it now? Can you share your truth now? And so that's why when we speak our truth, both these timelines come together and then they're one. So instead of feeling split by fear or discord, because the fear is coming up because in that lifetime didn't work out so good because you tried to hold on to it. And it wasn't wrong. It was just another experience. They're like, there's nothing wrong with anything you've done. You're just having all the amazing experiences of what it is to be human, the whole spectrum. You're here to live all of it. To rape and be raped, kill and be killed, have a baby and lose a baby, to fall in love and fall out. Like the most epic adventures. And these are the love stories that we're here to create and experience organically through discovering ourselves. And in the meantime, just create our dreams. All along the way to expand the human potential and its story, to remind ourselves who and what we are, and the greatest expression of that in all of its expressions, none good or bad.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
So one piece of what I heard in that was, each of these are just different experiences we've had. Maybe we got scared and held on before maybe something all the way played itself out into this more epic love story. That almost seems to me like what a lot of people would describe as like trauma. Is this associated with trauma? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Or how would you relate trauma into this, what you were just describing?
It's the same thing. Trauma means dream.
Trauma means dream?
It's German.
Oh.
So it comes from the root of dream.
So I never knew that. How is that so?
If we look at the roots of language, like even the word trabajar in Spanish is to work, its root is to torture. It's just we don't understand what we're saying vibrationally, and torture is to work, is to repeat a pattern of suffering over and over again. And that's okay. Just another experience. Like, do you want to do that? Once you realize you're doing that, you're like, do you want to do that? And then are you choosing that? Instead of feeling like you need to survive. And as long as we're trying to survive, you'll always be trying to survive. And that's okay. That's an experience. And that's amazing.
So how is trauma related to dream?
Because
I feel like those aren't typically associated, at least not in the conversations I've had.
Well, dream in the sense of the imagination. So the way that they talk about this is they talk about, the sacral is, if you're familiar with the chakras, the sacral chakra and the pelvis. So that's the feeling, sexual, creative energy. And then the relationship with the heart. So in between is your identity. It's who you are in the world. It's the expression, your ego, as people say it. They're like, there's nothing wrong with ego. The reason why we have these tethers around ego for shame is because of the root of humanity's discord with the earth. So any expression of us, there's this underlying shame. But they're like, no, it's just another divine expression of God, of you in the world. And it's ever evolving into something new. Not better, just new. Another experience, another experience. So the same thing goes with the head, because they focused on this for a long time, and it's just like, well, what is the third eye? And they're like, that's the key to the imagination. That's the imagination point, but it tethers the heart with source up in the crown. So you can only see as far as you can allow yourself to feel. And feeling is a mental construct. It's really allowance to experience. And then feeling is the creation of it, what we call feeling. So, but these visions we have are showing us something constantly. It's a communication device, but it's a co-creation with our heart. So it can only match where that is. Does that make sense? So in wherever your heart is and whatever it sees and feels, and it's neither good nor bad, it just is. And everybody's is different. And that, as a consequence, we have all these different creations and experiences based on how open how open the heart is. And each one is magnanimous. Like none better than another. Like you're equal to the table and the sun. You can't do what it does, it can't do what you do, but together you can play. They're just different vibrations of light or sound or frequency, and that's what they call love. It's the same thing. So everything's light. So you judge one piece of light, which is great. Judge it. What's your truth in that? Keep moving. Like, what's next? Now what? What do you want to do? What does it inspire? But it's all light, even disease. And that's where the emotion. So these dreams, just to tether back to that, these are the pieces, because it's not in front of us, we're going to be seeing hints and ideas and inspirations constantly from source as it's tethered to our heart to remind us to remember. They're like, it's not remind. Remember to reconnect to these parts of us, these pieces from time, as we bring ourselves here and then allow ourselves to feel fully.
So it's almost like, how I'm understanding this is almost like it's how trauma is associated with dream is like, it's almost like the clouds go over the sun and it's kind of blocked or like somehow fragmented, or we're not able to connect to the fullness of that thing there. The trauma is almost pointing to something that's underneath it or behind it.
It is in a sense. So it's like popcorn. So if this thing happened in this other lifetime, it was so intense and traumatic. It's like we shut it out. It's like a lot of people when they have traumatic experiences in their life, they often will forget it, or they blank it out, or we navigate in order to survive in in this society or culture by navigating it by suppressing something. It's just, how can I just keep going? And then of course people then are deeming them as this problem or this problem, and and that's okay. So let's see what are we doing? Cool. Do we want to do that? Is that what that is? It's a lot more questions to be had. But then suddenly people are on, different drugs or different experiences, or they start suppressing their truth, and then it gets more compressed, more compressed, more compressed. So in all these expressions then are stored in the body, and then over time, if you don't create something out, if you're not sharing it out, it creates something in, because you're a creator. And that expression is a sound, is a light frequency. So that cancer is or disease or whatever, it's a frequency. And it has a story, and it's just trying to be heard because it's not coming out. It's like, can you hear me now? When the thing that you do care enough, is it worth it? Can you feel it? And you don't have to. It's okay if you don't. Like, that's another experience too. That's okay. And that's not to say, but the cancer is not there to kill you. It's there to inspire you to live, to feel more. Because suddenly we do things differently when that happens. We feel differently when that happens. Something new. Whatever that is, but we're accessing something that we perhaps didn't before, most likely not. And that's going to be tethered to those dreams, and they're inside.
Wow.
And current day life is always trying to create that, so we have those experiences.
Yeah. I really connect to this. My experience of, going into my traumas, healing those traumas, when I'm able to transmute that energy, I'm able to experience more of my life. And usually that happens through expression, through expressing some truth, expressing something that I was suppressing and withholding, whether that's verbally expressing it or expressing through doing something or creating something. And it opens up more possibilities in my life, and like the dream expands. So I'm almost envisioning trauma as like this unexpressed dream that's like all like bottled up or like twisted, and like you're just holding it all together rather than actually like listening to it, feeling it, allowing it to like unfold and come out and like be heard and met and received. And it's like just sitting there, and we've like put it in this box and just shoved it away and ignored it or closed off to it. And when we open it up, it's like, it probably is going to be very intense, but also at this point where I'm at, it's worse to keep it there. It's worse to not do anything with it, because then it's just that cancer that continues to perpetuate in my body, and it's like I don't want that. Yeah.
So then the question would be like, what do you want instead? Because a lot of people, there's a rejection. They're like, there's nothing to heal. They say that there's nothing to heal. There's nothing wrong.
People say that.
No. The channel that speaks through me when they're like,
okay.
Because the moment you think something's broken, there's a problem to fix. And then it's not like looking down like sources like, yeah, that was totally a problem. We totally messed that up. What if, and it can be that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not negating that. That's an experience. Like to think that this is totally wrong. This is a problem. And we need to fix it. And now we can be worthy. And that was fun. And we get to do that. But we also get to go on these epic adventures, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with any of it. But there's nothing to fix. It's just, and it's okay to like keep it in a box for a while. Like that's an experience. That's just another experience. Put your suppression, there's nothing wrong with it. Like have that experience, because you wouldn't know what it's like to have that free expression fully unless you had the other extreme. So you don't know what it is to almost to live sometimes to the extent of that unless you've almost died. Someone else will have, and it's not like more gratitude, appreciation. It's just another experience. If you haven't had water or if you haven't spoken in a year, like when you speak, you hear your soul, you feel your soul. You're like, that's my voice. This is something that comes out that's like, that's been there for so long. And the same thing when you quench that water, if they're not drinking for so many days, it's like, it's surreal what that experience is like, But it's also wonderful to have the other experience. It's like, just take it for granted. Here it is. I had that experience too. Like, that's fucking awesome. Have it all. Go out and get it all. Actually, go big. Do them all real big. Get really sick. Like really, and then, get really dehydrated. Get really, really hard on yourself. Have that experience. That's a part of it. Because the moment that we see like cancer as a problem, it's going to be really hard to hear it. And that's okay. So have that experience for a while. But eventually, it's like, that's why these things come back. Try and get rid of it. No, it's like, no, I'm trying to tell you something. I want you to feel something. I'm not done. I'm going to take you somewhere. You asked for this. You want this. So when we have curiosity applied to that, it's a very different story. And that's not to negate the truth. Like you're like, I'm fucking terrified. And I know this is happening for a reason. Where is this taking me? What does this inspire me? What am I fucking feeling? What do I want to do right now as a consequence? And maybe it's burrow myself in the ground. Or maybe something like I was going through a real severe space. I thought I was about to cut, just put myself, and I would have done it. Just things shifted really quickly, but I was like, I'm going to dig a hole in the earth and I'm going to put myself in there for 2-3 days, just with my head out, and I'm just going to be there, because I'm like, I want to have that experience. What is that? But it was the inspiration of this disease or this problem that inspired me to say, I want to do that. And I wouldn't know what I know until I went through it, because it's all about experience. Like I found bioenergetics because of a disease, and then it changed the course of my life.
Yep.
That's where it was taking me. It's like, we want you to see this.
Yeah. Oof, that's powerful. I relate to that in that my journey into spirituality, I would say, really started because I started getting injured in my running. I was in college and, had my best season of my training I'd ever had, like one summer after like freshman or sophomore year, and was just like killing it, like beyond my expectations of what I could achieve, and was hitting these super blissful states on my runs where like 10 miles would just go by like that. And I'd just be like smiling ear to ear, just like feeling so much joy in my body. And shortly after that, I started to get injured. And each time I tried to come back, very quickly after that, I'd get injured again and couldn't regularly train. And so that sent me down a whole path for over a decade now of exploring all these. I started getting deep tissue massages. I started getting and learning how to do energy work. I started getting into yoga and things like that, and just started exploring different spiritual philosophies, started working with plant medicines, and none of that would have happened if I didn't have that experience of injury and frustration and, trying to understand why this was happening to me and how I could get back to really like reaching those states that I was reaching through that experience of running, these kind of transcendental states. And because they were no longer accessible through that way, it redirected my energy and my life into a whole nother set of paths that has really made me who I am today. That if I had just continued having that experience and having more success there, I may have never discovered. I probably would have had other experiences, which may not have been better or worse necessarily, but yeah, that definitely shifted my whole direction of my life. And so I'm very grateful that I kept getting injured, because it sent me down a whole path that's been very satisfying to go down, very grueling at times, but also I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't take it back. And I used to resent having that experience, but now I no longer do. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, those perceived problems, right? I got to get back to what I was doing. Oh, yeah, amazing. It just causes us to slow down and stop. In other ways, like, would we stop? Would we see what we were creating? Not that it was bad, but like, when do we ever reflect back on what we're doing and creating, or even aware of what we're speaking or how we're speaking? I don't mean right or wrong. I mean, just what are you creating? And where is it coming from? And that's totally cool. Like, I'm in awe of it now as I hear it all the time, and I see it all, because what I can see and hear now is just, it's ridiculous, and it's overwhelming, because I'm like, is this the Truman Show? Like, am I the only one who doesn't get it? Like, because I feel like I see these different archetypes of everybody, and then I see the different stories going on at all moments in time as people are communicating and all these things, and I'm like, nobody's sick. Like, they're not, like, it's an experience. Like, you're fine. You have an experience. But then I feel like an ass for saying that. But I'm like, but it's hard to see anything else. It just looks like people are acting poor, like horrible actors. And I'm like, is this a joke? Like, what's going on? So it's wanting to take myself seriously, to even be inspired to like share things, and like, why am I even like, this is a joke. This is ridiculous. Like, this isn't even real, and then in some constructs it's not real, and it is real. It's all these things about what is life. But it's like, I guess for me, the challenging part has been what inspires us to live. There's a lot of theories and religions and things like that, and they have it's all amazing. Like, but I'm like, somebody had me this like pathway of thought around living, and I honor that totally. I'm just like, that's really amazing. That does not make me want to live, though. That actually makes me think this is a complete pointless waste of time, and there's no point in me being here. It's a joke. So I appreciate that. I really do. Like, I know that's helpful for so many people, and that's probably a great, that's part of the experience. But I'm like, what's going to cause me to feel alive again? Like, what's going to make me want to really be here and really share, and really, like, what excites me and make me feel like I'm not just some emperor in new clothes. It's so weird to see so much now and just wonder what's going on and think I'm the joke. Does that make sense? So. It's yeah, like, even like this and these other things, I'm just like, oh, it's this, because I can see so many pieces, but I don't know what I can't see. But now that I can see so much, it's like there's so many things, like there's so many reasons I did so many things mattered for reasons. Now that I see all these other things, I'm like, that doesn't matter anymore. Like, all the push and all the desire, all the need for that, the importance of that. So it's like, it's not that important. I'm like, so the fight is gone, which is an interesting space to go, because it goes back to like a space of quiet. Like, when you get injured or something like that, it causes us to like feel and stop. And it's just like, I feel like waiting is, we're all waiting. And now that they talk about this is the era of the heart. We went from the era of the intellect, which is really, it's all the heart anyway. They're like, nothing trumps the heart. So they're like, it's into the era of the heart. And we're going into the space of creating from inspiration. Not from fear, not from lack, not from problems. But we can do that. That's wonderful too. But what are you inspired to create? What excites the shit out of you? Rather than to fight to get something. And that's okay to fight too. Like, you want to fight all out, do it. But like, what am I now that I like, all that is pointless and the fight's gone? Like, what really matters? And like, I've gone without money for months and months and months, without food, without shelter, without shoes, fasted for, weeks, with only water. So it's like, I don't really need anything. I'm seeing how life shows up, and it's hard as fuck sometimes. But I get to have those experiences of how hard as fuck that is, how alive that is. And that part inside me gets to pour out and feel. So it's like, well, now that I see that I don't need any of that, what really matters? What's exciting again? What's the sin of life that makes you really desires something in that sense. Different kind of sin.
Yeah. So what is that for you right now? What does make you feel most alive? What most inspires you to want to live and to share and express and to experience?
Truth. That's it. That's what all the sins are about. It's funny, the Book of Mary talked about, and my channel talks about, they talk about everything. They're ridiculous. They're amazing. And I'm like, I don't know, is it real? I don't know. But I'm like, I don't know any of these things, but it makes sense. I listen to Abraham Hicks. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, this all makes sense. It fits. It's consistent. I'm like, all right, you guys are good. This is good. But I also know it's just a part of me. I can call it a channel, but I'm accessing a part. Like, you're a part of me. We're all light. We're all one energy. But at the same time, like, it's not as much fun when we're separated and we get to play, as separate energies, knowing that we're part of the same. So the Book of Mary, they discovered, I think it was like 1875, and they kept it a secret for 100 years because they were concerned about something would happen to that book. And so it was revealed, and they asked Mary, like, are there any sins? And the only sin she speaks of is adultery, which I thought was interesting. She said there's one sin. Like, what is it? And it's the root of all disease. And I was like, and maybe I'm missing. This is how I remembered it, so I need to look at the text again. But there was one, adultery. I was just like, well, what is the root of adultery? Like, what's the root of work? Trabahar. Like, what do these words really mean?
Yeah.
And it's to adultery is to, I'm butchering it. It's like the root of it was somewhere around like to judge something, to see something as less than divine. Or to when you do something to something to kind of disgrace it or destroy it. It's just like, it's when you see that, when you see things as less than perfect or in their truth or in your truth, whatever your truth is, it wasn't less as divine. It was something in that context. I forget what it was. So I'd look it up. But anyway, I was just like, that makes sense, because it all goes back to truth. Because eventually, as you take all the truths and you keep navigating through your truth and yes-anding everything, it takes you to you. And that's what they talk about as your path. That's your path to, it's through desire. To go back to sin, like what people talk about sin. You talk about the Bible, you talk about, all these different things, sex and food and all these things. But they're like, here's what's going on around your relationship with the earth and why this is prevalent with you. Because everything is an emotional. Your behavior is based on your emotions. Your emotions are based on a relationship. And it's a relationship with you and the environment and other people and humanity and animals. So they talk about, there's like, this is what happened. And this is what you all can't look at, because it's the trauma that's hidden in your body. It was so traumatizing that you're living on the thing that killed you. You have to forget that. And then what are you going to do when you feel like this huge thing could just destroy you any second? You wouldn't be able to walk around. And then you're like, well, why did you kill us? We must have fucked up something. We must be wrong. So then there's all this shame. Like, why would you do that to us? Why would that happen? Because back then it was like the energy of the earth was a living entity. We were co-creating and playing with it. We didn't go on a boat on a log to conquer an ocean. You went on an adventure to play with the ocean. And the fish and the sun, you didn't protect from the sun. The sun gave life and force to everything, but so did the moon, so did the dark. There was the whole experience of it, metaphor of ourselves and it's all mirrors and metaphors. So it's just like we must have done something wrong. So that's why we shit in our water. That's why we throw all our trash in the oceans, and the power plants are all in the water, and even the oils, they look like they're pounding a hammer into the earth saying, fuck you, and not wanting to touch the earth because we don't trust it. But it's really this passive-aggressive anger that we don't know what to do with, and the only thing we can control is land and animals. So we control what we can and then fight each other in this construct of masculine and feminine within our own souls, trying to find out why and how we can be worthy again by saving one another or saving the planet. Now we're going to save the planet. The planet's fine. They even talk about that. They talk about like how the glaciers are melting, and inside of the glacier, water has history, it has energy, it has vibration. So this is melting into the air as we're breathing this in, and inspired creations are coming from that. The air is life force, which is the inspiration of life as it moves around the planet. This is how ideas, they inspire on the planet because they find other energies that are resonant with it, and they inhale that energy into them over time. It's like the butterfly effect. And you can, depending on how you want to look at this, multidimensional constructs, you can see this from different constructs for a love story. But what if the ice was melting because it wanted to inspire a new creation for life?
Hmm.
And so we could see ourselves more and see the earth and have another experience.
Hmm.
So, and its desire is the pathway to our dreams. They always talk about that. They say desire, it starts with desire. What do you want? What do you really want? Because that's exciting, and that's where the most flow of energy is.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. What you sharing all of that, what it's inspiring in me is, or what's reminding me of is, I've had several brushes with death. I've had a few, what you would call near-death experiences in this life. And it's adding a new context on how I see those experiences, adding a new layer at least. I already come to a really good relationship with those experiences. I'm actually really grateful for them. But the piece that's dropping in right now is, oh, like I chose to have those experiences to become more intimate with life.
Uh-huh.
Because I wanted to get to know life better. And one way to do that was to become more intimate with death or near death of even this physical body. And, you know, perhaps that's one frame I could even put on what's been happening with the earth. You know, it seems from one perspective that we are nearing death of the earth, right? Which may or may not even be true. But yeah, certainly there's a lot of pollution and a lot of ways that we've been eroding the soil and harming the earth. And perhaps that is to get to know more intimately the value of the earth and the value of caring for it, because we chose this experience of kind of ignoring it for a long time. Yeah, I don't know. That's just some thoughts that were coming up when you're describing that, of like, the closer we get to like the end of something or the extreme of something, the more intimate we're actually becoming with it. And perhaps that can inspire something new that we wouldn't have otherwise known. You know, for me, sadness, for example, it's like experiencing the depths of my grief and my sadness feels like it has dug a deeper well for compassion and joy and all of these other experiences. Now my depth of experience is enhanced. I have a greater capacity for experience because I've gotten more intimate with that emotion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they would say because you're feeling a part of you that is being remembered from another life, because you're having such a close, because they call those are the deaths. People say, I had a death. And they say, that's exactly right. You did have a death. You experienced what you held on to, but you died in another lifetime. So you reallocate all that energy that was being compressed as one of your love stories, and you pulled it in, and we started to have that experience. And then you have more of you, more access to, meaning more access to flow of energy, to universal energy, and then the new story, the new expression, the new discovery of self, of the world, of who you are, of what this is, what's possible. You know, because anything is possible. Anything. So it's just, we can only go as far as we can trust and believe and allow, you know? So yeah, those experiences, like you're saying, that's what helps us understand what it is to be alive and access things we otherwise potentially wouldn't. You know, it's such an intense, amazing experience. When you think you're going to be gone and you don't know where you're going, you know? And then everything you just created, your whole life that you've spent up to this moment, did any of it really matter?
Yeah, it really puts things in perspective, considering in one moment all of it's just done, gone. It allows me to have a different relationship with my experience. It allows me to have a different relationship with my life, with the people in my life, with the choices that I'm making, with the experiences I'm choosing to have. And all of those experiences for me have ultimately been very positive in terms of the shifts that happened after those experiences and the direction that I headed after those experiences. Yeah, it almost felt like in certain ways I was coming to an end, and then I was reborn, because I finally, by being pushed to my very edge, was able to let go finally. Was able to release that thing that I was holding on to and got to experience expansion again when I was contracting, and that was leading me further and further down this path of that dream just dying more. And instead, those dreams were born.
Yeah. Yeah. I would even say that the idea, they talk about death as reallocation. It's just reallocating energy, that's all.
Sure.
So when we have such a fear-based construct around life and death and the unknown, which is wonderful. It's inspiring and exciting. It's very interesting and mystery. It's amazing to not know. It's so important to not know, and it's not fun to know what's going on in chapter 18 when you're in chapter 6, but we all want to know what's in 7 so we're safe and okay. Not all of us, but it's just like, is this okay? Fuck. Not realizing that, we're actually being invited into experience life. What is it like to be on the street? What is it like to have no money? What is it like to be wealthy? What is it like to be stranded in the ocean for a minute? And like experience that, and the depths of humanity and their relationship with the earth. That's why it's kind of going on a tangent. They talk about Wim Hof and why his work is so powerful is because it goes to the root of humanity's discord. It goes right to the root of it, the tidal wave, the flood. It's just like, that's where it all started. So here we are tapping into, because we're the only thing that protects from the cold. We build a house on a house. We manage our temperature of water. We use water to flush out shit. Literally the things that we're trying to let go of, in terms of our physiology, and we're putting it into water. Like it's so blatant. There's no mistakes anywhere. If we can just see the story that's happening, with these roots. But none of it is really, I think this death thing, like one of the things they have me do is now that I'm in this space, they invite me into these fascinating adventures. And it's really to see the world is not what I think, but the elements. And at one point of time, like I've had incredible experiences with the ocean. Like that, they invited me to swim out to the ocean a mile in the middle of the night, just naked, upside down, just floating there, and which is one of the most horrifying, and I'm not like, go do that. It's one of the most horrifying things I can think of, and I'm just like, unless they were so adamant about this and this is, I would never even do it, but I trust them so much. So like stuff like that. And then when I get out there, when I get through that, I see that what I thought it was in a totally way I could have imagined. It's something completely different. And this is just a type of fear. Like I've fallen into fire before, and I'm not advocating for that. But but there's a moment where I know my frequency is matched in a certain way, and I go in this fire, and I don't even burn a hair on my skin. And I'm just like, this is not what because they're like, this is love, this is love, this is light, this is you. This is not what you think, and it is. It's exactly what you think, and it's way more. And then so they're like, so where, it's about trusting, fully trusting that being, in these moments, there's a very specific invitation in certain moments. It's like, can I trust this? And then I see that nothing is what I thought it was on the other side of that, the elements. And it's terrifying and exhilarating. Does that make any sense? But until we have that experience, it's just books, knowledge, inspiration, ideas, a source is communicating to us. Experience is everything. That's why I'm like, go live in every way you can possibly imagine. Like really fucking live.
Yeah. Oof. What this is reminding me of is a conversation I had recently with a friend around one of my core desires that I clearly expressed earlier on in my life, that I got very clear, like, this is one thing that I care about a lot, is I desire to experience what it's like to embody unconditional love.
What does that mean? Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. So I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I could just feel the frequency of that was something very interesting that I wanted to explore. It would be a very meaningful exploration, and my current relationship to that word, to that experience is I think the simplest way I want to describe it right now is showing up to each moment with no judgment, and to learn to love every moment of my experience, and to not resist it, to not reject it.
What are you doing, and what does it mean to love if you're not resisting and not rejecting?
Means I'm welcoming and experiencing and opening to that experience and more seeing and feeling it for what it is and for what's available in that experience, rather than putting it in a box or judging or labeling it as such one thing, and then that's what it is. It's opening to that experience and what's actually available there when I release more and more of my judgments and constrictions about what that experience can be. Or I'd even apply that to a person. Showing up to each person, and maybe one other simple way of describing it is seeing the best in every person that I come across, and seeing them in their fullness and in their higher self is maybe one other term I might use.
What does that mean?
Again, I think it means letting go of any judgments I have about that person and really witnessing them in their more and more authentic truth, and becoming curious about that person rather than coming from how I've been programmed to perceive that person. So for example, if I come across, what we would call like a homeless person, rather than viewing them as separate or different than anyone else, like, let me show up and talk to this person like I'd talk to a friend, like I'd talk to my mom, like I'd talk to any other human, and show up from a place of curiosity and really see them and feel them and want to understand them more. So it's like a experience of life where I am opening rather than closing or thinking I know and have it figured out. So that's the best way I can describe my current experience of that. But yeah, that's just like one exploration I'm on in this life, to understand what does it mean to embody that state. I mean, I think a lot of people describe someone like Jesus as someone who embodied unconditional love. It's like no matter who he met, he found a way to love them and to see them as no different from himself.
What does it mean to love in that context?
Let me take a moment. So the analogy I want to make is every human being a cell in a body, and every cell in a body having a particular purpose. A cell is part of a bigger system, a bigger organ that serves a certain function within the body as a whole. And I feel like a lot of times what we do as humans is, if I'm a hand cell and you're a liver cell, I may not understand your purpose, and in some way I reject you, or at the worst I'll reject you and fight against you, or I might just be neutral. So I think for me, unconditional love means being adamant about understanding every other cell in the body and understanding myself, how I fit within the context of the total body, and how I can best support the health of all cells.
When you say understand, what do you mean by to understand every cell in the body?
To understand the function that it has, the purpose that it has, how it contributes to...
When you say understand, though.
What's that?
When you say understand, what does understand mean? Like the word understand, when you... Just trying to understand the context of that, because it's so key in what you're saying.
Okay.
To me.
Understand. How would I define understand?
You're understanding all the other cells in the body and their functions. What does it mean to understand? That's a good question. I just am trying to come up with the words to define that and how I'm using it. Cool.
Understand. So if I'm to understand, let's say, a brain cell, what that would mean is that I know and comprehend its relationship to the body, what it's capable of, what its purpose is, how it works to a degree, how I relate to that thing, to that cell. I think those are some of it. Am I answering your question at all, or?
Yeah, just trying to get clarity on it. Just wondering how
would you define understanding, or like how are you kind of viewing that? Or,
well, each person, there's a lot of words, like the way I operate. It's just that I see things as people are saying things, and it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm seeing these things. And I've started not negating anything I see anymore. I'm just like, there's something there. And so I'm just curious about this, because there's words like understand and love and unconditional. I'm like, we say love and unconditional love. And so I'm trying to understand, because people have different shaman, tantra, like these things. There's so many people who are shamans now. I don't even know what that word means anymore.
Sure.
So everybody has a different. Is that just a teacher? Is this somebody who's in nature, who's connected to nature? And like, what is someone's perception of what a shaman is? What is the perception of being understood or loved? And it's not to be right or wrong. It's to get clarity around what we're expressing. Because a lot of people think love is to be kind. It's to be sweet. It's to be compassionate. It's to be understanding. Understanding, there's that word in the context. I think that the root of the word is to stand under something and support it. To be in support of our experience and understanding of it. But to know its purpose, I don't know if we can know the purpose of anything. Truly, like, I don't know, the way I see trees now, like now that I see trees the way I see trees, I'm like, it's a tree and it's way fucking more than I ever could imagine. So that's why when we say words like love, and it's such a consistent part of our dialogue, or shaman, and it's just like, what are we really saying? When we're working for money, when we're working, and I'm okay with all of it, but I'm like, what are we doing? And what does that mean? And because it's so general, and everybody seems to have a different context of what that means. Because some people find me loving when I'm really honest, and other people think I'm a complete dick. And that's not loving at all. And that's fine. I can't control that perception, but I'm curious. I'm like, that's really interesting. It doesn't change how I'm going to operate. Like, because the only thing I have now is my truth. So that's where I'm at. And that's feels good right now. And not out of disrespect for anybody else. Like, it's just my truth. Sure. And it's like, this is my truth. And like, I respect you. What does that mean? Because what you're having to say is important to me. Like, I'm really fucking curious, because what don't I see? And what is my perception of what I am seeing? Is that right? And if so, where's that going? And why would you hide that? So when you say things like that, I'm just like, that's so interesting to me. What is that for you? Because I respect you so much.
Yeah, no, I'm all about words and definitions and context and all of that. I think I was just having a hard time. I have this experience sometimes where I think I'm clear, and I think that the other person understands what I'm saying, and that I've provided enough context of understanding for what I'm saying, but I don't know, because I'm not in your body and I don't understand your experience. That to me is fascinating, where I'm almost noticing where I'm making assumptions on how someone might be understanding or perceiving me, and you may not have the same context that I do. I may have think I've explained something perfectly, but I forgot to describe one or two key elements of something that has you being like, I don't know what you're saying. I find that fascinating.
For me, it's more vibrational. Like, I feel a word now. And so when the vibration is a certain way, like, because love can be so many different vibrations. Like in acting, we had an exercise, we call it the I love you, I hate you construct. We often will say to a class, what does I love you mean? And then people have these definitions of I love you. And then it's wonderful. And then I say, well, can I love you mean, when someone says I love you, can it mean I want to fuck you? Or I want your money? Or I want to use you? Can it mean that? And then we ask them, what does I hate you mean? And then they're like, can that mean I love you? So there's nothing, it's just the vibrational resonance of a word, which is so fascinating to me, because I love what you're saying, but I'm trying to get the clarity of it doesn't have clarity for me vibrationally, so I can't see it yet. So I'm just like, I don't quite get it because I can't quite feel into that. And that's just me. But I'm just like, that's really interesting to me. And why don't I see that yet? And I'm just like, why am I not getting this? You know?
Totally.
So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
man. So I'm curious to, as we kind of move towards wrapping up here pretty soon, to hear just a little more on something you were talking about earlier. So you were bringing up this idea around like these unexpressed things in yourself, these unexpressed truths, these like creative urges. How do you relate that to, we had a little discussion just prior to jumping on here about like cancer or diseases. I'd love to hear a little more on your perspective on like the medical model right now and health and that whole world, because I know you've been in that world from kind of a different context. Like, what is your experience of that? How do you view things? 'Cause I feel like the model that a lot of people view that right now is, well, first of all, coming from a place of disease, like we're so focused on disease and we're so focused on fighting things, you know, the war against cancer, the war against all these things. I'm curious, just like, what is your perspective on all of that now based on the journey you've been through and kind of the information you've received and how you perceive that?
It's essentially the same, I think, as the context from before in our conversation. Just basically everything's a love story. Like cancer is a part of a love story. There was a moment, because with the bioenergetics technology, we essentially make what I can do with my body, what I see now is kind of almost like the technology. Like I feel like I can do what that does now. It's amazing. And we all can. Like technology is just something we connected and expressed with our heart and created with our hands from source in this co-creation to make something in front of us to remind us what we can do and already exists here. Like the technology that we're creating already exists in nature, but not in the way that we think, because it's a different vibrational resonance. You can only see what you're vibrating at. So in your imagination is the key to seeing the other realms. So which is just source and the unseen with your heart. So this creative expression in the world. So that's what technology is. We're creating technologies, and that's why we would create missiles. Where that's the discord of the heart. We're fighting with all these things, and so. But now we're also creating all these other technologies to, all these problems we created. Now it's trying to solve the problems with our technology that we can't do, and we're building it away from the earth. It's like we're mining there, we're ripping things out instead of using the earth and these four-dimensional technologies of pyramids and all these other different constructs that currently exist that have extraordinary amounts of energy. But if that were to come out like that, like that's why Tesla was crushed, because if we had free energy overnight, do you know what would happen to the world? Like it's like a nuclear bomb exploding. Like everything changes in a second, and our understanding of reality is. So he finally made what a pyramid essentially is. He made this incredible free energy. So, and we all know it. It's well publicized. Still haven't done it. Still haven't figured it out. Got to pay that electric bill. Don't get those solar panels anywhere. It's just like, what are we doing? Like, why do we shit in our water? That's fascinating. Why are we the only thing that shits in our water except fish? It's just like, what are we doing? So it just goes back to this disease thing with the emotions and the tethers with humanity and why we're here. But we keep creating things that are us. We are the technology. We are the internet. We are bringing all of our minds together, typing onto keyboards, our collective consciousness onto a computer thing that's ethereal, just like money. And it exists in this ethereal realm, and it's collective. That's why there's 300 million pages that show up, because you have the entire collection, and you can access it because it's just a frequency. We just forgot what we could do. So when we tap into everything, because it's all light, it's all just different frequencies. In a world of separation, they're just different channels, but the heart is accessing all of them. So when the heart is open, it can all be seen and heard. Time is irrelevant. And disease is the same way. It's like disease is just repressed. It's unexpressed love stories that are still inside of the body. And once it gets allowed, there's nothing wrong with that. It's almost like building up. That's what they talk about, pain and pleasure. When you have compressed emotional energy in the body, it's really hypersensitive and it's painful because it's compressed emotional energy. And the way we know this energy is because if we feel it, we're feeling creatures. You're designed to feel, but we keep trying to not feel. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel this. The heart isn't like, oh, this is good and this is bad. Anger is bad and ecstasy, that's totally cool. Heart just expresses truth, whatever the fuck that is. It doesn't edit. And it doesn't say one is good or bad. The heart knows. Will we get out of the way and let it move us? And as meanwhile, the heart pumps blood into the entire physiology. You have 74,000 miles, 3 times around the planet, blood vessels, microvascular in your system, like you sitting there in this 5-foot X frame, and you have 74,000 miles. So all of that is blood from the heart pumping its expression of love through the physiology. That's why the root of human discord, meaning of disease, they talk about stress and they talk about blood flow, because wherever we forget to love in life shows up in the map of our physiology, and then we don't see it until it gets so big. A big vein, a big thing, a big problem, and then we start to see the disease, and then it forces us to feel what we're trying to cover up, and that's okay. We get to have that experience of what is it to ignore this? What is it to be an expression of God and forget that you can do anything? And then be poor and then be sick. And I'm not to belittle that at all. We are fucking going through it. We are in it, and it means so much in that moment, and that's amazing, and it's so important. So, but the blood flow. So we start, and we have technologies that are starting to do these things, but we can do it ourselves with the earth when we allow ourselves to reconnect to the thing that we're terrified of. But it's not just about walking on the earth. It's about allowing ourselves to receive an experience. And this is a new thing. You're going to see a whole nother fucking realm here. This is a multi-dimensional playground. There's so many worlds on this world, and they're all vibrational. They even talk about science where you can see 1% of light. 99% of what's in front of you can't even see. So what is your world? And my channel even says that's why your eye looks like a planet, because you're looking through your world into another one. And everyone is a different world. And you're getting to live them and experience them. And then what do you want? What do you want? So, and when you start denying your truth, when you stop believing in your dream, that's okay. That's an experience, but that's what you're here for. Create your fucking dream. Fucking go for it, because anything's possible. And that dream will take you on a journey. And on that journey, you will experience and find everything and every part of you along the way while you write a love story. That's saving the princess. You will find yourself. By the way, she doesn't need to be saved. She's totally fine. But yeah, what an inspiration, right? And yeah, so for me, that's the medical model. So whenever, I'll just end on this. I had a client once who had, she had a disease, an intense disease. And so we have this process where we're guiding them through this imagery, but I see it literally now. It's like I can see it. And during the imagery, this little girl jumps in the whole scene. And I'm like, am I making this shit up? I'm like, okay, this is happening. And this little girl comes in. She's like, and I was like, all right, just go with me with this. I'm just seeing this little girl in here. And, I'm more the practical guy. I believe in this stuff, but I never seen anything like this. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it's real, but I've never really done it. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm seeing this right now. So I was like, this little girl's in here. It's like, what is this? And she said, well, who is she? And I said, I don't know. Who are you? And I hear this voice. She said, oh, I'm the Cancer. And I was like, oh, you're the Cancer. You're this girl, blonde hair girl with white skirt, jumping around, happy as can be. And I'm like, hi, Cancer. Who are you? What's going on? And she's like, what is she? I don't know what she's here for. She says, what's she here for? She says, oh, what are you here for? She says, what'd you think of that gala we did last weekend? Wasn't that great? Or no, she didn't say gala. It was a gala. She said, the party we threw last night, wasn't that fun? And then, it turns out she had just done a fundraiser to support herself and raised $32,000. Took her totally out of her comfort zone. Just to even do that. And then she started making all these connections, she was driven. And so all these people came in, and she was pursuing all alternative methods of treating this, because she didn't want to do the typical Western model. That's fine. Do whatever you want. So, and then I said to her, and she said, well, what does she want? I said, I don't know. She said, what do you want? She says, I want to go, let's go to Central America. Let's go have fun. Let's go on zip lines, and let's go rafting, and let's go play. And it's like, huh. I was like, interesting. So we went through this whole process, and she stayed in the room the whole time, jumping on everybody. And when it was over, she grabbed her and she took her out the door. It's like she was taking her on an adventure because she needed the Cancer to inspire her to live again. And it took her all over Central America. She went through all these different tribes and processes, all these technologies. She's gone through hell and back. She's experienced so much life in that process. And part of her, and I said to her recently, because I can see her, I haven't seen her in 4 years, and that was what started it all. You know, she went on this huge, intense journey. And I said, how's it going? She said, it's still there. I said, that's interesting. She said, what do you see? I said, you're not done with it. Who are you when you don't have it? And she's like, I don't. I said, well, if that's gone, why do you want to be here? So it was actually keeping her alive, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, this is amazing. And she's still fighting. So she's still using that. And it's taking her on this insane journey. And I'm like, are you done fighting? Do you still want to fight? And you can, and there's nothing wrong with that. What do you want to do? And so she's navigating that right now. And things are changing quickly. You know, we're always here to inspire, to recreate ourselves and really remember, and then live those pieces one at a time while creating love stories in our dreams. Living love stories.
Wow.
So, yeah, thanks for asking.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, nothing wants to kill us. Everything wants to remind us what we are and inspire us to live. Everything.
Wow. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, you too.
It's quite the journey we went on, and I really appreciate just the very unique perspective that you bring. And yeah, I just, even when we were talking at lunch about, you know, the core pillars that you have in your relationship, I just feel like there's just such a cool shared set of things that we value, and that I found are just very supportive things to root into. So yeah, thank you for just the journey you've been on. I look forward to learning more about your journey and about who you are, and being on this together, and continuing to venture into the unknown, to the mystery of what's unfolding that we're all kind of a part of. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. It was an honor to have you here, and I appreciate your deep questioning. And yeah, you made me really think and self-reflect during this, which is really nice. Usually I'm the one who's, you know, which I did ask a lot of questions, but you gave me some really good questions and things to ponder, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, pleasure. I haven't really shared this much publicly at all, so this is, I appreciate the opportunity to lean into this, so thank you.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. You have a lot to share, and I hope you continue sharing more. I really enjoyed it, and know that yeah, people are gonna really get some kind of value out of this, I believe. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks
For leaning into that edge for yourself.
Totally. And yeah, just thanks for being you. I just tell the readers that don't know this gentleman. He's an extraordinary man who just has so much heart, and he's just so dedicated to his truth in such a beautiful way, in an authentic way, and really has a genuine curiosity for other people's souls, and inviting things for himself and for others to expand from the experiences that he gets to share with them, and make some really fucking kick-ass pizza. So if you haven't get down to, seriously, like, it's pretty freaking awesome. So that's not a sales push. That's that's honest. So thanks for doing what you do, because your truth and your authenticity goes in everything you do, and you can feel it, you can see it, and it has so much. My channel would say, like, it has so much more power because there's so much flow, because it's all going in the same direction. You're choosing it, and it's your truth, and that's where the most energy is. And you keep choosing this, and you're enjoying everything you're doing, and as a consequence, you get to put all of you in it consistently, and it reflects in your staff and your food and this building we're in right now. It's just this presence with you. I almost forgot we were even here. Like, genuinely, it's just such a joy to forget again and just be here. You know, forget all the stories of my fear of even communicating these things, and just be here with you. So thanks for just being that person for that, and continuing to do so, because that's who you are.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah, honored to share this conversation with you.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate you listening if you got this far, and yeah, hopefully you got something out of this. If you're interested in connecting more with Akana, do you want people to connect with you? Do you have a way people can connect with you or follow your journey, or they'll just see you next time you come back around?
I'm on Facebook. I haven't gotten out there much yet, Instagram, but Facebook, yeah. Akana Isai Richard.
Cool.
AKANAISSAI Richard.
Awesome.
So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
See you guys next time.